Welcome to Moneyline MMA coverage of UFC 283. This is the light heavyweight belt on the line for two straight pay-per-view cards as Glover Teixeira and Jamal Hill duke it out, as Dana White was just upset at what happened in the last outing of light heavyweights. This also includes a co-main event of Davis and Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno 4, and also the last fight for UFC legend, Mauricio Shogun Rua. He has stated on December 20th of last year that this will be his last fight against Ihor Potieria, and who knows if he'll be able to win this coming in as an underdog. But that is not what we're going to be discussing tonight. We've got our 5 weights as usual for you guys. One pick for each of the 5 fights on this main card. And as usual, we're going to start with our most confident picks of this week. And starting with my 5th and heaviest weight here, the best bet of the week for me is going to be Davis and Figueiredo. Jose, what's your weight on this one?
So yeah, for this fight, I actually have Brandon Moreno taking the W, but he's at my 4 weight, so we're not far off from each other on this one, Nick.
Wow, that's insane, though. I'm excited to see what happens here. We're definitely really confident in our own rights in our picks here that disagree. I mean, wow, talk about 2 flyweights that have just continued. I mean, this is the 4th time they've fought for the belt against each other. It's just ridiculous. 1-1-1. Who's going to break the streak and get the last win? Currently, the odds stand at Brandon Moreno minus 130 and Davis and Figueiredo plus 102, which is interesting because, Jose, the line earlier this week was like minus 110 for both of them, pretty much a straight even line. So there's some money coming in on Moreno here. We'll be interested to see, at least I'm interested to see if a lot of money will come in late on Figueiredo. I have a feeling a little bit might. So this might be one of the better lines to get Figueiredo at, as technically being the underdog here, man. I think one thing that I really like here in this fight that I put him my 5 weight is because of that whole situation with the James Krause and from what I heard that affected Brandon Moreno and his coaching, and Figueiredo has just been kind of grinding away, man. And I think he's going to bring it. I think he's going to kind of know to maybe leg kick a little bit more, and we'll see, man. But I think Davis and Figueiredo is just going to absolutely bring it, and so will Moreno. I expect this fight to go over at least 3 rounds, man. I really don't think either guy is going to be able to knock each other out that early in the fight, but I could be wrong. But that being said, I'm still very confident since he's my 5 weight in Davis and Figueiredo getting this one done.
Yeah, without a doubt, Nick. It's like no question, like, the wars these guys already been through, 3 of them, being one of them a draw and each having a win over the other. It's no surprise why the audience is like going, like the bettors are going back and forth on the 2. And as myself too, it's like, going with Brandon Moreno, there is that risk, Davis and Figueroa has beaten him once, and then the first time too when it was a draw, I thought Davis and Figueroa was actually getting the best of Brandon Moreno. So I wasn't even going to be surprised if he actually took that unanimous decision. So, or at least split decision, I should say. So, but Brandon Moreno, they both throw a high volume of strikes. I don't think Brandon Moreno throws as heavy, hard shots as Davis and Figueiredo, but his high volume does make up for it, and he's a finisher still. I mean, he just finished Kai Kara France for the interim title, and that's why we have this 4th fight now. And that was just a great showcase of him, having a TKO to the body, of just how much a high volume of kicks is just hitting the same spot over and over again can be effective. While Davis and Figueiredo, he's a scary finisher within his own right. We saw what he did to Joseph Benavidez twice in different methods. His submission game is scary, but so is Brandon Moreno. I'm going with him because again, just how he's looked more recently, and I'm not going to let the James Krause things kind of like. I don't think that stuff will really interfere with him for this fight because he has been successful without James Krause in the past, even in the UFC. So I'm leaning on Brandon Moreno. I am a little biased too. I am a big fan favorite of his. Davis and Figueroa is a legit threat, but yeah, for this one, I have Brandon Moreno as my 4th.
Yeah, I get it, man, and it's definitely unfortunate. I don't. It's hard. Like I'm not as knowledgeable on how much that that Krause situation affects Moreno, and like you said, it's probably not that significant. But in all reality, man, for how close these guys are, I'm looking for any little edge I can get, and also looking at some of the previous fights here of Figueiredo, I realized that he's fought three different fighters since October 12th, 2019. That's crazy, man. He has fought Joseph Benavidez twice, Alex Perez. He's defended his belt against, or he beat Joseph Benavidez to get it, and then defended against Perez. And since then, he has three straight fights against Moreno. Man, that's just interesting. Figueiredo is just solely focused on getting this win. And, man, that does say something for Moreno to be able to get the knockout belt defend against Kai Kara France. That's a lot of respect from me, man. I'm a big fan of Moreno here. I don't know, man. I have a lot of confidence Figueiredo can get this one done. So we'll see which one of us is correct because we're both pretty confident in our disagreement, but I love it.
Yeah, for sure, Nick. I can't wait for that one. And that brings us to my fifth weight now. Well, my fifth weight, Nick, the one I'm the most confident with getting a win this Saturday is from the women's flyweight bout between Jessica Andrade and Lauren Murphy. I think Jessica Andrade, I have her at my five weight. Her history, she's such a hard hitter. It's hard to deny her. She was a former champ, didn't hold on to the title long, which is unfortunate. But she's been able to hang up there with the best of the best, and she has scary power. But Lauren Murphy is a true test to Jessica Andrade. So I'm curious to see where you have this fight weight at, Nick.
Man, I agree on Jessica Andrade likely getting the job done here. So I did pick Andrade, but she is only my one weight. I just feel like Lauren Murphy sometimes brings the worst out in fighters.
I hear you, Nick. Like, betting on Lauren Murphy isn't bad. She is a plus 360 underdog right now, while Jessica Andrade is a minus 530 betting favorite. Yeah, Lauren Murphy, she's been up there with the best two. She beat former champ Misha Tate, going to unanimous
Mhm.
decision. So she does show that threat of being able to go the distance. I'm curious to see this unfortunately, this is only a three round fight. So I was going to look more into their five rounds, but both, Lauren Murphy, she has an extensive history of going to the third round. While Jessica Andrade, she has made it to the fifth round one time against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So I'm not worried at all about Jessica Andrade going against someone like Lauren Murphy in terms of matchup wise. Lauren Murphy is the bigger girl. She's 5'5", while Jessica Andrade is 5'1", and Lauren Murphy has a 5-inch reach advantage. Jessica Andrade, again, her style, she presses forward and she throws heavy bombs. I mean, I'm pretty sure she put out Caitlin Chokakian. Yeah, she KO'd Caitlin Chokakian in the first round, and Caitlin Chokakian is a tall, lengthy fighter who does very well at playing that distance game and tagging people from far out, staying out of pocket. She's really good at winning by points, kind of like Stephen Thompson. So the fact that Jessica Andrade could put someone out like Caitlin Chokakian in the first round, that's why I have her as my five weight. If Jessica Andrade that's focused and just comes forward like a bull and throws heavy haymakers, that's a scary Jessica Andrade, and that's a Jessica Andrade I'm willing to bet on any day. So that's why I have her at my five weight, Nick.
Yeah, dude. I love the point about her knockout against Jakagian, man. I think that really actually is a great comparison, kind of to what Lauren Murphy usually brings. Lauren Murphy does have a couple of takedowns in her UFC career, but in all reality, it's not a big part of her game that I think is really to be concerned about. And I think Andrade is going to do what she usually does and press forward and throw those bombs. And I don't know if she'll be getting the round one knockout on Lauren Murphy, but honestly, the more you talk about it, the higher weight I think I should be putting on her, man. I think that's a great bet to even go as far as to say that Andrade will win by KO. If you don't want to, that's one way to avoid that minus 530 straight up. You know what I'm saying?
No, I hear you, man. You're right about that. Honestly, yeah, if I'm picking Jessica Andres to win and the method she's winning, I'm picking her via KO. I mean, she throws 6.16 significant strikes landed per minute. So, and her grappling game is there too. She does have 8 submissions on her record. So, Lauren Murphy has never been submitted, but the threat that Jessica Andrade has is always there. Lauren Murphy isn't much of a doesn't have many submissions on her record, so I don't think that'd be a threat to Jessica Andrade whatsoever.
Hmm.
I think it's going to be a stand up game, and yeah, you're right. I think if I'm going to bet on this, I'm going with Jessica Andrade via KO.
Definitely. I love it, man. So that then brings us to the next fight, which will be my four weight. So my second most confident pick coming up this Saturday, which will be Johnny Walker in this bout against Paul Craig. He is a minus 205 favorite against Paul Craig, plus 158 as the underdog. Jose, what's your weight on this one?
Yeah, so for this fight, I actually have Paul Craig as taking the W for this, and he's my three weight. Reason being is his striking is nowhere near as good as Johnny Walker's, but his submission, his grappling is just next level. And I think Paul Craig is one of those guys that should be in the talks, like in the top five. And I think this, a win after Johnny Walker and maybe one more, he's there. I think he is going to be can be a real legit threat in the light heavyweight division, especially his win over Magomed Ankalaev, like that last minute submission, just something like that. Like he has a predictable game plan, but I feel confident enough where he can get a win over someone like Johnny Walker. So that's why I have Paul Craig as my three, Nick.
Okay, so that's going to be another one where Jose and I disagree. Obviously, we don't talk about our picks ahead of time, and there's a little bit more proof. Two of the three picks so far that we've discussed are going to be crossfires and against each other. And man, I hear what you're saying. Paul Craig's ground game, submission game is incredible. But one thing. Maybe it's a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth too, because I did have Paul Craig against Ozedmir, and that ended up being a really bad pick because Paul Craig really just kind of got beat up the whole time. He landed no takedowns, and it kind of just seemed like his strategy. He had no ability to wrestle with Ozedmir. He was just trying to get like he wanted Ozedmir to take him down so that it just could get to any way possible to get it to the ground. And I don't know, man, it just seemed a little bit too desperate. Like he needs to be able to command like Paul Craig's takedown accuracy is 20%, man. He just can't if he doesn't have a guy like on the edge, or if he doesn't time it perfectly, he's not getting the takedown. I don't think Johnny Walker chooses to bring this to the ground. I think Johnny Walker recognizes that he's got what is that a 6-inch reach advantage and a 3-inch height advantage. I mean, he's clearly the bigger man here. I'd argue that he's the stronger guy. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but he's a really shredded dude, man. And I think Johnny Walker, it's almost hard for him. I don't know, man. A dude as big as he is cutting down a 205 is kind of nuts to me. But it is what it is. He's able to do it. So to me, I'm relatively confident in saying that Johnny Walker will get this win. Obviously, he's my second highest. Like I said, I think Paul Craig's only chance is if Johnny Walker decides to take it to the ground.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't think Johnny Walker has any intentions on bringing this to the ground. And so, yeah, there's one where we differ on this one. I got Paul Craig and you got Johnny Walker. And I will say Johnny Walker is a major threat. His stand up is crazy. And he's explosive and he does have that potential to end any night. He has a higher striking rate than Paul Craig, lands more significant strikes per minute. So that is the one thing that I do worry about Johnny Walker, but that's kind of also why I put Paul Craig in the middle for this. Um,
Sure.
that's why he's my three way.
Yeah, as long as
But that
I was just going to say,
go
as
ahead.
long as Johnny Walker is improving, because he got knocked out by Jamal Hill, who's going to be fighting on this card last year, like
Mhm.
about a year ago. And Thiago Santos kind of took him. And granted, that was a close fight. And it was a unanimous decision. But on the board, Johnny Walker did outstrike Thiago Santos. It just didn't win over in the judges' eyes. So that being said, as long as Johnny Walker is consistently improving, I think he's going to be a real threat to continue to run up on this light heavyweight division, especially with Jiri out and Glover might wanting to make a last run here through in Brazil with this card being there. And man, the light heavyweight division could be completely wide open for Johnny Walker to walk right through if he wants.
Yeah, man. Like, and you know what's crazy? He's the betting favorite, but out of his last six fights, he's only won two of
Yeah.
them, and While
True.
Paul Craig's actually kind of had a winning streak after going against Shogun Rua, and then he beat Shogun later on, and he actually has a win, a TKO in the first one over Jamal Hill, uh, and Nikita Krolov as well, which are both guys that beat Johnny Walker.
Correct.
So that Volkan Ozdemir thing, yeah, they're just seeing it like if Paul Craig just doesn't be too obvious and play that ground game and pull guard as much, and he changes it up a little
Hmm.
bit, I feel more confident now. I'm going for Paul Craig. So
Hmm.
sorry, I just wanted to say that out there. Just looking at that, like
Yeah,
having a win over Jamal Hill, yeah, like just seeing
for
that.
sure.
I wanted to point that out. But yeah, like moving on. What's your next weight? What's I guess like because yeah, you're two weight, or you're three weight. I'm sorry, or no two weight. My bad.
It'll be my well, no, it'll be my three weight because we've discussed all the way. We've discussed your four weight, which is Moreno. My three weight is Gilbert Burns. We have yet to discuss Gilbert Burns versus Neil Magny. Man, this is another people's fight. I personally, so my pick is Gilbert Burns, third three weight, just to be clarified on that one. And Gilbert Burns is a heavy -500 favorite, man. Neil Magny plus 340. This is just really, I think it kind of leads up to being a good matchup for Gilbert Burns. I think Neil Magny's kind of struggled against a guy like Shavkat Rachmanov, who is an up and coming prodigy, but got choked out, and there's just some situations where it feels like Neil Magny's real good matchup is going to be a guy who stands up and strikes with you, which Gilbert Burns pretty much straight up did with Kamzat. But outside of that, Gilbert Burns is definitely, he's Brazilian. He's great with jiu-jitsu and stuff. So it'd be interesting to see if he decides to take it to the ground. But Jose, I'm so interested to see what your weight is on this one.
Yeah, so for this one, I have Gilbert Burns, and he's my two weight because just seeing what he went against Khamzat Chimaev, and having that submission win over D Rod is in fact impressive for Neil Magny. But yeah, like you mentioned, how he looked like at Shavkat Rachmanov, like yo, like that's the kind of pressure Gilbert Burns brings, and same as Khamzat Chimaev as well. So like Gilbert and Kamzat were just going at each other like straight head on, and that's Shafkat's no different. So Gilbert's going to bring a similar style and press forward, and Neil Magny's kind of a slow starter. I would bet on Neil Magny against certain other guys because how much of a smart UFC vet he is. He does have the most welterweight wins in UFC history, more than GSP now, and uh, like I would bet Neil Magny over a bunch of other fighters, but not a lot of fighters in the top five. So someone like I'm not sure where Gilbert is necessarily right now in the rankings, but he was a top five for sure as of recently, and he's one of those guys where I think like I don't see Neil Magny beating just because how powerful Gilbert Burns is. He has knockout power and he has great jiu-jitsu, and I don't think Neil Magny's size, structure, and power is going to scare Gilbert off whatsoever, especially after that war he had with Kamzat. So yeah, for this, I have Gilbert Burns at my two weight.
Yeah, and just for reference, according to the UFC website, Gilbert Burns is the fifth rank welterweight. They start the rankings after they start with C. So in all reality, that's the sixth best welterweight, and Neil Magny 13th. So that'll be interesting. It kind of explains further as to why Gilbert Burns is such a heavy favorite. I think pretty much he can stand up and bang with Neil Magny, and he's never been submitted in his UFC career. I personally would have no concern if I'm betting Gilbert Burns that he gets choked out or anything. To me, one of the only methods that Neil Magny has to winning here is by decision. And I think Dorino is going to come in here with motivation. He thinks he won the fight against Kamzat. It was a unanimous decision, but boy, the only things Kamzat got were the not he got a knockdown, I'm pretty sure, in one of the strikes. So that was pretty much the only big difference maker in that fight. Otherwise, Gilbert Burns looks so impressive, man. I think he's got a lot of confidence right now, and that's the kind of guy I want to be putting my money on in the end.
Yeah, well, then you have it, both of us for Gilbert. That's one we agree on for sure.
Yep. So two for two, agreements and disagreements, which leads us to one fight remaining. And it just so happens to be the main event, the light heavyweight belt, Jamal Hill versus Glover Teixeira. Jamal Hill is currently the minus 132 favorite, even though if we look at the UFC website going back to those rankings, he's actually ranked lower than Teixeira at the eighth ranked light heavyweight, which is really interesting. Glover is a plus 104 underdog. Jose, what do you got for weight on this one?
Yeah, for this one, I have the former champ Glover Teixeira taking the W, and he's my number one way. Obviously, you can't deny him. I mean, you have the former champ going against essentially a last minute replacement. I mean, we know why this fight was put together. Dana was pretty upset with the last light heavyweight title championship that happened late last year at the last pay per view. Really upset, and afterwards he booked this fight pretty much on the spot. Um, Called Jamal Hill up and got this thing finalized pretty shortly after. So, I mean, Jamal Hill's yeah, he's good and he definitely can take the win. And I am just surprised though that he's the favorite. But hey, I'll take that gladly. Glover Teixeira is the underdog in this matchup any day.
Man, and obviously by process of elimination, he's my two weight. Glover is, so we both agree on the underdog here. This will likely be Moneyline MMA's underdog endorsed of the week. Obviously, my individual underdog probably Figueredo because that's my five weight, and he's currently the underdog. But regardless, this is the one underdog we both agree on, and I think for the similar reasons, man, as good as Jamal Hill is in his knockouts, I mean, he's gotten five now straight in a row. Although, actually, my mistake, three in a row because the fourth he got knocked out by Paul Craig. Funny enough, after I sit here and talk about how he can't strike. But that being said, honestly, still not concerned about Johnny Walker beating Paul Craig and also about Glover beating Jamal Hill. Look, Jamal Hill got taken down six times against Thiago Santos in his fight last year. And that fight got into the fourth round, and Jamal Hill ended up getting a knockout. So definitely did great striking wise. But man, did he show that he has vulnerabilities? And he could be well aware of that and be working on it. But we're talking about Glover Teixeira here, man. If he ends up on the ground, this fight's probably over. At least the definitely the round is over. I think at that point, no matter what, Glover's going to get the round, and I think that advantage is just huge to have. I think Glover's. I mean, got the home field advantage. You know what I'm saying, dude? There's just so much. I think this is just kind of has to be true for him. I think, there's a chance that he doesn't win the fight, but no way to me. This is like a 60-40 chance that Glover wins the fight. And who knows, he might defend it and not retire, but I think if he loses this fight, he retires, to be honest.
Yeah, I think actually win or lose, he may retire. I think there was like some talks that if he was going to win the last fight, he was thinking of retiring. So I think if he's champion, he'll retire. Or if he beats Yuri Prochazka, if he gets a chance to fight him again, that's when he'll retire. But yeah, it's hard to deny. I mean, how Glover was looking against Yuri the last fight, up until like the final few seconds before he himself got submitted, he was looking great, and he's an old guy hanging in there with these young guys. So his experience is, phenomenal. He's been with the best. He's fought for the title multiple times. He's fought John Jones. He's fought other big names like Jared Cannonier, Anthony Spit. He's been through the generations of UFC fighters in the light heavyweight division.
Mm-hmm.
He is kind of like just kind of one of those rare guys now that's in the UFC that we're starting to see less of. Like not a lot of guys like him don't have UFC careers like him and become champions this late. So I think he's definitely a special fighter, and I think Jamal Hill, I think he's definitely going to be a top five guy and be fighting for the title again someday.
Mm-hmm.
And again, who knows? He could get this win, but I truly think this is Glover's time, and and I feel really confident that he's going to take the win. Especially even though he lost the last fight, I thought he was looking extremely great,
Yeah.
elite level, and he trains with the middleweight champ Alex Pereira. So it's iron sharpens iron. So I'm going with Glover.
Sounds good. Okay, so the final verdict then. Moneyline MMA agrees on 3 of the 5 fights with the 2 disagreements. I've got Figueiredo. Jose's got Moreno. I've got Johnny Walker. Jose's got Paul Craig. We'll obviously, as usual, give us a follow on Twitter at Moneyline MMA. We'll be posting our weekly picks on Saturday before the main card starts, which will be at 9 p.m. Central Time, even with the fight in Brazil. So I believe that'll be midnight local time over there. And the old man will have to stay up pretty late one more night. But I think in the end, it'll be a great outcome for him, and he'll be glad it happened that way. Being able to potentially retire at home. So that being said, I'm going to wrap it up then for this week's episode of Moneyline MMA. Thanks you guys for listening,
All
and
right,
we'll be
catch you
back for the
later.
next UFC card.